Hello there. When the scientific process came about, suddenly we were able to look back and to recognize the physical cause of the illnesses and ailments which we suffered from. This was, freaking awesome. Why? Because it meant that the illnesses and ailments that we suffered from ceased to be some intangible, etheric, and abstract force. Suddenly we could understand that the plague wasn't in fact caused by God punishing the human race for prostitution. Instead, it was a cause of bacteria that were carried by fleas and rodents. Understanding the physical cause of an ailment or an illness is really, really important to the healing process. But when we started to think that the physical cause was in fact the root cause of the illnesses and ailments which we experienced, we lost something very valuable. We lost the understanding that the story about the root cause of an illness or ailment started far before the physical cause, which we are looking at. Saying that an ailment began with the physical cause of that ailment is the same as saying that the song you're listening to came from the radio that is sitting on your nightstand, when we all know that the actual story about the root origin of that song started way, way, way before it reached your nightstand radio. Knowing that, I'm going to lead off this episode with a statement, and here it is. Ailments begin mentally and emotionally. They then become physical. The physical cause of the illness that you see before you is just that. It is a manifestation of a deeper mental and emotional root cause. It's hard for us to see the power that the mind or our emotions have over our body. Why? Because we can't see the mind. Once we adopted a Newtonian model of physics, we suddenly really cared what we saw. So obviously if you can't see the mind, and if you can't see emotions, they're abstract to you. But play a game for me. Close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to imagine biting into a lemon. Make it as real as possible. See if you felt that reaction back here in your jaw, the reflex to tasting something sour. There are no lemons in your vicinity, so why did that just happen? It happened because your mind doesn't know the difference between something you imagine and something that happens in its external reality. Everything that it perceives is real. The body is reflecting what is happening in the mind and the emotions exactly. We are not conscious of the reaction in our body to our thoughts and subsequent emotions. Are you aware when you're stressed at work that your stomach is tight and your body has shut down blood flow to your extremities, and your body's flooded with cortisol and your heart is working double time to cope, and your liver is breaking down glycogen like crazy? No. Chances are that you're simply focused on whatever's stressing you out. So if you develop something like heart disease, you're going to be baffled as to why. You do not recognize the cause of the effect. This is even truer when the mental and emotional causes of our ailments find their roots deep in our childhood. This is the case with cancer. Cancer is the byproduct of deep grief that we experience in our childhood that goes unresolved. But this is the last thing we think of when we come down with cancer. When we get cancer, the first thing we do is rush straight in for chemotherapy treatment. Ultimately, the root cause of our physical ailments is trauma. But when we're thinking about trauma, we have to expand our understanding of trauma. Trauma is simply a distressing or unpleasant experience. Looking through this lens, it's easy to see that being taught a painful belief is trauma. Being weaned from the breast is trauma. When we're looking at things like rape and war, that's just the very extreme end of trauma. But anything that is a trauma that is unresolved can become a physical malady. A trauma that is unresolved puts us in a state of resistance because we have not moved through it. And don't kid yourself. Surviving trauma is very different than moving through trauma and finding completion. When we experience trauma, we have to find a way to weave it into who we are meant to become. We have to find a way that that trauma serves us instead of serves as a detriment. And most of us don't do this. Instead of moving through and completing our trauma, most of us simply survive it. We stay strong and muscle our way through it. We dissociate from it. What happens then? It stays a wound that doesn't heal. An emotional and mental trauma actually affects the blueprint of our being. That blueprint of our being then informs the body what to do and what to become. So what about ailments, illnesses, or injuries where you can actually see a physical cause? Things like environmental hazards, or accidents, or injury, or genetic defects. That's where you think you have me, right? Think again. We live in a universe that operates according to the law of attraction. This means you can only line up with those types of physical causes if you were already a vibrational match to them in some way. For example, unresolved grief makes us a vibrational match to tragedy, so it is not unheard of for an entire demographic of people suffering from similar unresolved grief to be a match to a collective tragedy that triggers cancer, such as a nuclear disaster. This is the real reason why you can expose an entire demographic of people to a physical cause like a virus, and some of them seem completely immune, while others immediately succumb to it. The same is true for accidents. The two most common vibrations that I see present within people that make them a match to accidents are a feeling of complete powerlessness, victimhood, and also a feeling of self-punishment. If you're in a space of self-punishment, you feel guilt for something. Accidents are a way to resolve that guilt. Accidents allow us to let ourselves off the hook for it. To even line up with an accident, there has to be a mental and emotional issue in place. And I will also tell you that where your body is injured in an accident is also no mistake. There already has to be a weakness present in that very area for the injury to be caused to that area. Thoughts and emotions even affect our gene expression. Epigeneticists have already figured this out. Essentially, when you adopt a girl into a family that is predisposed for breast cancer, she is every bit as much at risk for developing breast cancer as someone who's actually genetically related to the family. Why is that? By being adopted into the family, you're being adopted into the mental and emotional patterns within that family. And so it's just as likely that you will develop that disorder as someone who's genetically related. How do we explain that if genes are just being dealt what you're dealt? We have to start thinking about genes like playing cards. Just because you're dealt certain genes doesn't mean they will automatically be played. Now, when most of us become aware of the fact that there are emotional and mental root causes to the physical ailments which we're experiencing, we have a very hard time swallowing that pill. Why? Because it means we had something to do with the ailment. We had something to do with the accident. Now, immediately people go from there straight into self-blame, or into a space where they're thinking that metaphysicians like myself are blaming and shaming someone for lining up with their ailment or accident. This could not be farther from the truth. Here's the reality. If you were consciously aware that you had anything to do with your ailment or accident, obviously you would have changed it. If you had a conscious choice, you would simply choose health 24 hours a day. But there are conscious and subconscious processes happening within a physical human being, and you are no exception. There are aspects of you are aware of, and aspects that you're not. And it's those aspects you're unaware of that are leading up to and becoming a match to these illnesses and ailments. So it's not about something that you did wrong. If you've manifested an ailment or an accident in your life, this is a call to become aware of these subconscious processes that are taking place within you. It's a call to awaken. You are being asked to make changes, nothing more and nothing less. Also, before I continue, for those of you that are flipping out, especially you doctors out there, I'm going to tell you that I'm a complete fan of approaching an ailment from all angles. That means approach it from an energetic standpoint, approach it from a mental standpoint, approach it from an emotional standpoint, approach it from a physical standpoint. All of the above creates a clear picture of not only the ailment, but also the way to heal it. But I will tell you that if you're going to address ailments purely on a physical level, you are addressing only the tip of the iceberg, because your physical existence quite literally is just the tip of the iceberg. If you are only addressing the tip of the iceberg, any physical step you take to cure an ailment will fall short. The ailment is likely to simply come right back because the blueprint for the ailment did not change at all. Now, this is the reason that the medical field in the Western world is so terrible at curing illnesses. Chronic illness is something that it's completely confused about. Awesome with acute trauma, terrible with illnesses. Why? Because it does nothing to address the root cause of those illnesses. The body is trying to communicate with us about our being through maladies. It is trying to tell us what is out of alignment, what is best for us, and what we truly desire. The approach to ailments needs to be, what is my body trying to say? So I ask that even if you're skeptical, consider this way of approaching ailments for curiosity's sake. It doesn't hurt to try on this perspective. So once you have manifested an ailment, what exactly are you supposed to do about it? I'm about to tell you. Step 1. An ailment that you're experiencing is always, without exception, just a magnification and an exaggeration of its actual cause. That's freaking awesome! Why is that so awesome? Because it's instant knowledge about what in fact created it. So ask yourself, how does this ailment make me feel? How do I feel about it? And what thoughts does it cause me to think? It's tempting to think that those feelings and those thoughts that you're thinking are caused by the ailment itself, but in fact the reverse is true. It's nothing but a magnification. So those thoughts and those feelings are in fact what is causing the ailment. They are the thing that is unresolved and unhealed. For example, to simplify, acne makes most people feel super insecure about how they appear to others. But feelings of insecurity about how they appear to others, and thus how they're accepted by others, is in fact what causes acne to begin with. Think back in your recent and distant past to what could truly be causing you to feel the way you feel, and to think those thoughts. This is the real wounding that needs resolution. 2. Focus on the onset of the ailment. Ask yourself questions like this. When did I first notice the symptoms? When did this ailment occur? And how was I feeling, and what was I doing, and what was I thinking in the months and weeks prior to that noticeable onset? For example, you might find that the onset of your ulcers happened when you started to have relationship problems, and as a result started to feel resentful towards your partner and critical towards yourself. 3. I want you to ask yourself, what is having this ailment preventing me from having or doing in my life? One step further, if I was to have or do that thing in my life, what would be so bad about that? Our body does not manifest ailments to hurt us. Your body is not against you, it is for you. So you must consider that the ailment you have is your body's subconscious attempt to assist you. If your body was trying to help you by doing this, what would it be trying to help and why? For more about this concept, I want you to watch my video on YouTube titled The Hidden Positive Intention, The Key to Letting Go. Here's an example of what I mean. People with MS tend to feel unsupported in life. That's a pattern that starts way before MS actually presents itself as a physical malady. But they also feel completely unworthy or incapable of asking for assistance, so the body takes over. It essentially incapacitates itself, so other people have to step up and play their role. As a result, the people with MS get to feel supported. Another example is some women who suffer from infertility don't have any idea that there's an aspect of themselves that in fact doesn't want to get pregnant at all. Perhaps they have unresolved wounding from childhood. Childhood may have sucked. So why the hell would you want to go subject somebody else or yourself to that same process? So in fact, the infertility may be a way for the body to save itself, or save the being from having to experience something that it thinks is actually negative. Another example is, some people who get cancer as a result of deep childhood grief develop a kind of mentality in life where they only do what they have to do, never what they want to do. As a result, their life is choked of joy. So the cancer manifests as a way of saying, look, I'm putting you in a do-or-die scenario. You can continue to do what you have to do and thus die because it's not really living a life anyway, or you can do what you want to do and start really living life, in which case we, the cancer, will go away and you will heal. We have to be willing to consider that the ailments we manifest are here to serve us in some way, even if it's simply to make us aware of something that needs to change. 4. All ailments are the byproduct of resistance to something. We are energy flowing forth into the physical dimension. We have a choice to go in the direction of that expansion. And expansion is led by desire. Once we desire something, we have a choice to line up with it, which is to allow, or else to resist it, which is to close ourselves down to that flow of energy. When we think thoughts and take actions that allow us to move towards what we want, we are in a space of allowing. When we think thoughts and take actions that disallow us from moving towards what we want, we are resisting. For example, wanting money and thinking money doesn't grow on trees is resisting. It diminishes the flow of energy through our body. It makes us a match to scarcity instead of abundance. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is this ailment showing me that I am resisting? For example, joints are about flexibility, so you can ask yourself if you have a joint problem. How am I resisting flexibility? How am I being inflexible? Resistance takes place on a mental, emotional, and physical level. So our aim should be to find the mental block, the emotional block, and the physical block that is preventing the expansion, i.e. healing, of any ailment we are experiencing. Step 5. The oldest trick in the metaphysical book is to look at the ailments we're experiencing quite literally. This means do all kinds of research about the ailment itself. What do doctors have to say about it? And once you have figured out about the ailment itself, ask yourself literally, how is that happening in my body? Here's an example. A cramp is a contraction, a stopping of the process of something. So consider how you are doing that in your life. How am I contracting in my life right now and why? And ask yourself how you were doing that prior to the manifestation of the ailment. Or another example is asthma. Asthma is, I can't breathe. So ask yourself, what in my life is making me feel like I can't breathe? If your body was conversing with you through the ailment as literally as possible, what would it be trying to tell you about you and your life and what needs to change? Step 6. Talk to the ailment itself or the area of your body that is affected directly. This is a highly intuitive process. But guess what? You are imbued with consciousness. That means there is consciousness in every aspect of your body, every cell, every organ. You can talk to every aspect of yourself as if it is its own being. And even our maladies, things like cancer, have their own consciousness. You can interact with it. I encourage you to do so in a meditative process. For example, if you have cancer, close your eyes and begin to feel the cancer. What does it feel like? If it looked like something, what would it look like? If it had a sound, what would it sound like? Imagine that this aspect of you has a voice of its own and begin to mentally ask it questions. Any and every question you can think of is good to ask. For example, why are you here? What do you need me to change? How are you trying to help me? The sky is the limit to the questions you could ask, and don't be afraid to involve other people in your life to think up questions to ask it. If you get stuck, you can do a left-hand writing episode. I love left-hand writing because it's an easy access to your subconscious mind. The rational, logical, judgmental mind has a difficult time getting involved in the process, and so you can have a pure conversation with whatever subconscious aspect of you you're trying to access. So what you can do is to connect to the cancer and allow the cancer, or whatever ailment it is, to speak through your left hand, through the pen, and onto the paper. 7. Heal your emotional body. The unhealed emotional trauma is the biggest root of our physical ailments. For this reason, I want you to watch my YouTube video titled, How to Heal the Emotional Body. Begin the process that I demonstrate in that video. I also encourage you to buy my book titled The Completion Process. It's available as of August 2016. As I said earlier, ailments are ultimately the byproduct of unresolved trauma. This process makes you aware of the unresolved trauma and then brings that unresolved trauma into a state of completion. Many people experience their ailments completely going away as a result of this process. 8. I want you to approach any ailment that you're experiencing as your teacher. The way to do this is the following. If I acknowledge this ailment, fill in the blanks what it is, as my teacher, what is it trying to teach me? No one will be able to tell you the root cause of your ailments and maladies better than yourself. All you have to do is to begin listening to your body and to be brutally honest with yourself. Once you do this, you will have the key to exactly what is going on within you. Soon you will be able to listen to yourself before your being has to go to the extreme of talking to you through the manifestation of a physical condition. Many experts have devoted their entire careers to decoding the root emotional and mental cause of specific ailments. And it must be said that there are definite tendencies that all of us who are experts in this field agree upon. For example, issues that involve the spine tend to have to do with issues of support. Issues that have to do with the skin tend to be issues involving personal boundaries. If you're curious about what experts agree upon as to the mental and emotional precursor for ailments, I encourage you to do your own research. It's pretty fun to do, in fact. However, not every expert is created equal. So I'm going to personally recommend someone to you today. I'm going to personally recommend Yvette Rose, who is the author of Metaphysical Anatomy. As a medical intuitive, I must say that her comprehension of the root cause of ailments has impressed me immensely. Perhaps in the future, I myself will teach more in depth, about the root emotional and mental causes of specific ailments. But setting that aside, I must say that I far prefer the idea of putting you in touch with your own body, so you can be the one to access the wisdom of your own body to know why specific ailments or maladies have shown up in your life. That's a far more empowering thing than leaving it up to other people to tell you what the root cause of your ailment is. So I encourage you to use the previous steps that I've outlined in this video to discover the root emotional and mental causes, the actual causes, of your physical maladies that you're experiencing or someone in your life is experiencing. Because once you have found those roots, you now have the absolute key to your long-term healing. Have a good week.